Today, I want to break sales down into its most fundamental parts. So if you're at zero, you can learn as quickly as possible. Maybe you're a founder that has never sold anything before and you need to learn how to sell. Or maybe you're someone who's looking to get your first ever sales job. These are the 7 key things that I wish I knew and clear definitions I wish I had when I made the transition myself from engineering to a direct sales role, where I've been for the better part of a decade now, selling not only to unicorn startups, but also some of the biggest banks and retail customers in the world. We also run higherlevels.com, so this isn't just my own experience. We've coached over 5,000 people that are both sales reps at some of the biggest tech companies in the world and also founders that are pre-seed to about Series D. So this is the culmination of not only my experience, but what we have seen work well and quite frankly not work with a lot of the people that we have worked with. Nonetheless, there's timestamps below. Feel free to jump around if you're looking for any one certain thing or come back and reference this video. But again, I've broken this into 7 major parts. And before we actually get into the tactics of how to make a cold call or send an email, the first one and major point that I want to make is the difference between sales and marketing. I think this is something that's often overlooked, and a lot of founders in particular think my company needs to make money, so I need to learn sales. We need to sell stuff, and I need to learn sales. And we're gonna make a separate video about marketing, but I do think the difference between the two is very important. Sales, in my mind, a simple analogy I like to use is fishing. Sales is when your rod has actually been casted, the bait is in the water, and a fish has actually eaten the bait. It's everything we do to actually get the individual fish we are fighting against one-on-one and bring them in the boat. Obviously, we're not fighting when we're selling, but you get the point. Marketing, in my mind, is often overlooked because that eager founder wants to make 1,000 cold calls. They want to spam out 10,000 emails instead of taking a more strategic approach with marketing. And instead, they'll send 10,000 emails. They'll tell their investors they did all these activities, but it was super low quality. They didn't understand what they were doing. And maybe they get one person a month that's interested. So when your marketing is dialed in this example of fishing, it's much easier to catch a fish when you're in the right spot. When you have 1,000 fish around your bait compared to 10, it is much easier to sell because you've just warmed up people, you've got a correct marketing motion. And again, that's a separate video. We'll make comment below if you want me to answer anything particular in that video. But we're gonna focus on sales throughout this video. And this really transitions into my second major point, which is often missed both by founders and by reps, which is your company's position in the market actually determines your sales approach. And what I mean is the first company that I worked at was a 250 person database startup, fast growing. We had really great product. We had really strong market fit. But when I first joined there, they had actually hired a lot of former Oracle employees, which if you're not aware is like the biggest database company in the world. Multi-billion dollar company, been around for 50 plus years. They're the market leader in a lot of different things. And it was really interesting to me, and what I noticed over time is that we, as a 250 person database company, would be going into a competitive deal against Oracle, and we would be saying things like, we're the market leader in this, we are world-class, we are best of breed. And quite frankly, again, that may get some people interested early on, but when you're final stages of a deal and you're competing quite literally against the world's #1 company, I imagine some of you may be founding tech companies that are displacing some like large organizations that exist. It's not realistic for you to sit there and say, we're the world's #1, we're best of breed, we're all of these different things, right? In reality, you probably have found little areas and opportunities to do a handful of use cases at an exceptionally high level. And I think it's often lost. A lot of founders want to prove themselves. They're ego-driven, and nothing wrong with that. It takes a lot to start a company, but don't kid yourself and don't kid your prospect that you're better than Amazon, you're better than Google and all of these different things. In reality, it's the difference between saying that and saying, hey, a lot of the customers we work with that are using large incumbents like Amazon, like Google, they often find that they're spending way too much money on their cloud cost. They don't even have the ability to monitor all these things they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And basically you're painting a picture of these 2 or 3 things that your company can do way, way better than these huge players because you're super focused on this one use case. So I guess what I'm trying to say in this point, again, whether you're a founder or whether you're a sales rep, your company's stage and really presence in the marketplace and position in the marketplace should impact the way that you're approaching prospects and customers. Don't beat your chest and try and act like you're this huge, well-funded startup disrupting the world. There's a time and place for that, but if you're a 5-person company, don't kid yourself. And on the flip side, if you are, maybe as an example, a sales rep working at some of the biggest companies in the world, use that to your advantage. You've got an army of case studies. You've got an army of technical specialists. You've got an army of resources that you can deploy throughout your deal cycle. And it's just really important to acknowledge where you're at in your outreach because quite frankly, prospects are smart enough these days to see through the bullshit. This translates really well to my third point, which is just a few basics that you need to know when it comes to making a cold call, how to structure a cold call, structure an email, structure a message to someone. A lot of what I just talked about applies, but I think it's really important as well to, again, going back even to the difference between sales and marketing, a marketing email is something that is trying to generate interest and probably get somebody to click or sign up for an event. Your job when you are cold calling, when you are emailing someone, is to start a conversation, and in almost all cases, if you're selling an expensive product or something that requires a complex sales cycle, to get them on a meeting, which generally means less is more, short and sweet, and you're focused on getting them talking about what they're doing today to actually interact with you. And it's the difference between reaching out, again, like I mentioned earlier at the database company I was at, I could send them a 5-paragraph email of, are you using Oracle and tired of it? That's exactly why this company exists. We work with 10% of the Fortune 100 and we do all of these different things. Maybe you're beyond that point individually, but a lot of people who are learning sales will try these things and be surprised that they're not getting any responses. That's a very marketing heavy thing, aside from the fact that it's probably bullshit and no one's gonna buy the fact that a 250 person company is better than Oracle in a lot of cases. When you are reaching out and sending an email, it's as simple as explaining what you do, asking them about what they do today, and if that is a problem for them, would it be worth connecting for 20 or 30 minutes or whatever the ask might be? I see a lot of people overcomplicate this. I'm gonna break down the difference between a cold call script and an email. Let's take the example of a cold call and say you're a founder of a small company. I'm not gonna call them and say, hey, we're this company, we do X, Y, and Z, and this is why we exist and all of those different things. Instead, I think it's important to state who you are and why you're calling, but we're very quickly trying to get a prospect to actually have a back and forth dialogue and talk about what they're doing first and foremost. So let's say in the example that I'm calling about, reducing their cloud spend. I'm just going to use a generic example. It's like, hey, John, my name's Eric. I'm the founder of Higher Levels, and I just wanted to reach out to you directly because I saw you guys are using AWS. We actually help AWS users reduce their cloud spend by about 20% year over year. I was just curious if that's something you've considered and how you're using your AWS services today. That was not perfect. That was really off the cuff. I'm literally making this up and improvising as we go. But the whole point being is a lot of people will say, hey, I'm Eric from Higher Levels, and I'm reaching out to you because we help companies like yours reduce costs by 20%. We work with 35% of the Fortune, click, and the person's gone. Your whole purpose in a sales cold call is to get them to start a conversation with you. Similarly, as you might imagine in an email, it's the same premise. Hey, I'm Eric Finch. I'm the founder of Higher Levels and reaching out to you specifically because I work with AWS customers like yourself that are trying to reduce spend. I noticed that insert an observation about their company, and I was curious, is that something that you'd want to have a 15-minute conversation about? So I know I'm getting a little bit hypothetical here, and obviously you can comment down below. I monitor these comments directly, so if you have questions or you want to run a template by me, let me know. I don't want to make it sound simpler than it is, but your whole purpose in cold calling and emailing is truly to start a conversation. You want that person to say, hey, this is actually something we have been thinking about. Could you tell me a little bit more about X, Y, and Z? These are the types of sales responses that you're looking for, and I think oftentimes that person that's brand new to sales is like so anxious, they just want to get someone to buy, that they're trying to accomplish so many different things versus starting a conversation, getting them to agree to a call. And that's exactly what this fourth point is going into. Now we've got a prospect that's actually agreed to sit down and have a meeting with us. This is commonly referred to as a discovery call. I've also linked another video in the description that walks through how to run a discovery call that's way more in depth. But just a few key notes here. Again, that person has agreed to a 30-minute phone call with you. They want to learn more about what you do. It's really tempting, and that person that's first ever time selling, whatever it might be, they get on the call and they say, here's what we do. We do X, Y, and Z. And you get 12 minutes into the call and all you've been doing is talking about yourself. And the prospect's like, okay, I mean, sure, maybe you've done that. Maybe you could do that, but that doesn't mean anything to me. You haven't asked me a single question about what I'm doing today. And so when you're thinking about a more in-depth conversation with a prospect for the first time, it really is about understanding what they're doing today and looking for opportunities where you could potentially solve that problem. Again, I'm making it sound way simpler than it is. I understand that this is a little bit more complicated, and it's also why I've linked to other free videos in the description that talk about how to lead a discovery call. But in reality, a really great great 30-minute call with a prospect, the first 20 minutes of the call, obviously you're doing some intros, getting to know them a little bit, but the first 18, 20 minutes, you're asking them questions about what they do today to even see if your solution makes sense. I just see the number one mistake of people that are new to sales is they either talk all about themselves, and that's like the worst, or conversely, they'll get someone on the phone and they'll ask them one or two questions, and the prospect's like, yeah, I guess we have thought about reducing our cloud spend. We want to take some initiatives. And the person who's new to sales goes, great, because that's exactly what we do. And they've only asked them one question. They don't know anything else. And they start pitching with no other context, no real ability to actually understand how big of a problem this is for the prospect. If they've wanted to do that, why haven't they for the last year? What other priorities are they balancing? How big of a problem is this actually for the company? And these are some basic questions that I think people that are new to sales, they think, I need to learn how to pitch. I need to learn how to give an elevator pitch. I need to learn how to tell and present confidently. And actually, before you actually have the right to do that, you need to spend 15 to 20 minutes actually understanding what your customer even does in the first place before then positioning your product. So again, there is a whole video I've linked in the description that talks about how to get through an entire discovery call. By the way, this also is something that if you don't have discovery calls, if you don't have prospects that are willing to meet with you for 30 minutes, don't spend your time worrying about this. You need to focus more on the cold calls and emails and actually setting up meetings in the first place. But again, there's resources to support you when you do get to that stage. And that transitions well to our next point, which is what is an entire sales cycle in the first place? If you're selling business to business, if you're selling in the niche that I do of highly technical products, what are some of the major milestones you should walk your prospect through? And you can also have to really track the progress of a deal at any time. Again, a very simple overview. Maybe we've emailed someone or called someone and they've agreed to a 30-minute meeting. We're gonna do a discovery call to actually see how big of a problem this is, if it's even a fit for our product and solution in the first place. And then if it is, what I would encourage you to do is set up another call where maybe it's an hour, you go way deeper into their environment, you learn more about what they're doing, and also, again, this is in the example of a technical sale, maybe the second half of that call or the last 20 minutes, you do a much more comprehensive demo that is specific to them, and from there, that is kind of the second major step of a sales cycle. The third would be to either do another call with management. I would encourage you to get management on the call, verify it's a problem, make sure that if you are gonna do a type of trial or something of that nature, that everyone is on the same page in terms of what they want to see. But really after a discovery call, after doing another technical deep dive and demo type of call, the third step in my mind should be starting a free trial, assuming that everyone at the company from a management level, from an engineering level, is actually on the same page and wants to then start a trial with very clear outcomes. And you want this trial to be time-based. It's really tempting. You have someone finally excited in your product for the first time or all of these different things. It's really tempting to say, hey, here's a trial. Let me know what you think. And instead, that is one of the biggest mistakes I see, I would say the mid stages of a deal. You give someone a trial and in reality, they kind of forget about it, they get stuck, they want to set up a call with you, but the call you set up, it's Wednesday today and the next call with you is Friday and they're just like, you know what, this is a little too much, I don't really want to do this anymore, and you lose all that momentum. So when you're creating a trial for a prospect, you have to put a time bound on that. Anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks is really important so they actually get it done, or they don't, but you can move on and just not waste your time anymore. But also, in addition to bounding that time between 2 and 4 weeks, you have to have established success criteria such that if you are successful, that would prove that your solution does what it needs and they would buy. So I know I'm getting a little bit deep in the sauce here, and there's a lot more that goes into it once you actually start a trial, you schedule check-ins. By the way, this is what we do at higherlevels.com, coaching founders and also sales reps, how to run this end-to-end with really in-depth guides, templates, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really important, just kind of restating the major things. You have to do a discovery call that is not you pitching, it's you understanding first and foremost what they do. Then if it's a mutual fit, have another call where you go even deeper into their environment, have the person you initially spoke with bring more people to the call so you can make sure you fully understand it. Maybe you're gonna do a much deeper technical demo on your side, again, because you understand enough now to give a hyper relevant demo. And then you're gonna work towards a trial. You're gonna put a time bound on that, whether it's 2 or 4 weeks. And you're also gonna work with their team, multiple stakeholders from their team, to agree on criteria such that if they're successful with that trial, then you would move forward. There's much more that goes into it, but those are some of the key pillars. What I would add on top of that, especially if you're selling to large organizations, is you want to have a call set up with their procurement team, their legal team, to understand how they purchase software, if there's any contracts or redlining or all of these different things they're going to have to do. But those are the major key components you need to think about when you're starting a sales cycle for the first time. And before we get to the last 2 points, I just want to say, again, the value of having a structured process like this, if you've never done sales before, is quite frankly, if that prospect does get a free trial, they don't make any progress for a month, this is a hard thing to learn, but you've got to really have that muscle to just walk away. If they're not willing to participate with you, if they're not willing to bring other people to the call, if they're not willing to agree on success criteria, unfortunately, guys, it just signals that they're not that serious of a prospect. And in many cases, it's probably better to move on and maybe reconnect in a month or a quarter or 6 months when they're in a better position to actually test your solution. The last 2 major concepts are handling objections and also doubling down on what's working. I'll quickly touch on handling objections because, again, this is one where if you haven't made a single cold call, if you haven't gotten on the phone with a prospect, don't worry about figuring out how to handle all these objections. You're gonna put your foot in your mouth. You're gonna be really bad at it when you start, and that's the point. But oftentimes a really simple framework for you, if you're on the phone with a customer or you're on a discovery call and a customer says, hey, this is too expensive, a really simple framework, again, this is beginner level, but you can implement this right now today and you'll get better as you build intuition, is to acknowledge what they're saying and ask them kind of the need behind the need. So, hey, completely understand. Quite frankly, that is something I hear often. People think that we are rather expensive, and maybe that's the case, but oftentimes it's because maybe their need isn't big enough or they don't fully understand what they do. I guess compared to what you're doing today or other people that you're looking at, why would you say we're expensive? And there's different ways you could ask that question. Again, I'm riffing this off the cuff, but the theory behind it, again, is just acknowledging their objection and giving it credit. That could be valid. Maybe we are too expensive. Maybe now's not the right time. Why is that? Just tell me a little bit more about that so I fully understand it. And again, basics here, but that should give you a really great starting point for handling objections. And lastly, I just want to talk about more the mentality of someone who's new to sales. It's really tempting, like I said, you want to information overload. You want to watch another one of my videos. You want to read Challenger Sale. You want to go on LinkedIn every morning and spend 30 minutes reading some of the top sales posts. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that per se. But as an example, let's say you've actually taken this video, you've started to implement it, you've developed some sort of repeatable framework or script that is working on cold calls or emails, one but not both. I can't tell you this enough, guys. It's so tempting when you first get started to think, okay, I made 10 great cold calls and I'm actually getting a lot of traction, so now I want to learn emails. And that is one of the biggest mistakes until you have fully saturated and really completely milked the one thing that you're really good at. I would encourage new sellers to just double and triple down on that, because if you are getting the most results via cold call, or maybe you're getting the most results via email, until you have the luxury of having so many inbound leads that you don't have time to do all these different things, just double down on what's working. Keep doing the things that are actually getting you results. And then again, as you get that systematized, as you have truly done enough scale of that, now you can take a calculated bet here or there, and instead of cold calling all day, hey, maybe now I've got that in such a good flow, I can do, twice as many calls as I used to be able to. Now 10% of my time I'm gonna spend emails. But don't have 3 successful cold calls and think I've mastered cold calling, now it's time to email. If those cold calls or if your emailing is getting the most results, double and triple down on that. You will learn how to do it more efficiently over time, and there's much more value to you as a business owner or as a rep in getting that really dialed in before you explore anything else. So that is a super deep video, guys. I really appreciate it. I monitor these comments myself, by the way, so let me know what other follow-up questions you have. And also, this is what we do at higherlevels.com, by the way. We help both reps and business owners really define their go-to-market strategy, really improve their career, and rapidly advance. So if you do have any questions, comment below, and also if you want to check us out at higherlevels.com, feel free. But appreciate it, guys. Like and subscribe, all that bullshit, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.